Go ahead, punk. Make me play.
This is Bumping Into That Sound.
Welcome to Bumping Into That Sound, the rock-centric music and tone podcast where we dive deep into the riffs, rhythms and stories behind your favourite artists, tracks and instruments. My name is Francis and I'm your host. Whether you're a classic rock enthusiast or just discovering the magic of it for the first time, we've got you covered. Each episode, we explore the story behind the sounds, the people and the equipment. We are here to bring you real conversations with artists who keep rock alive and kicking. And today we're talking with the founder and guitarist for one of the freshest, most hard-hitting rock bands on the scene right now.
Shirts on, sweating head to toe. Go and buy me a drink. To the bus when I give you a wink.
Austin Ingerman of Gunshine, a band that blends old school attitude, drawing inspiration from Guns N' Roses and Def Leppard, but with a modern edge. The guys know how to deliver tough riffs and catchy hooks with an energy that just leaps off the mix. They've been tearing up the stages and dropping killer tracks and have become a beacon of modern rock. I was lucky enough to spend an hour with Austin while we talked about the band's origins, inspirations, writing, producing, his guitars and his amplifiers, and what's next for Gunshine.
Yo.
Austin,
How's it
how you going?
Hey, good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, man. I'm very good. Thank you. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
I came across yourselves, well, the band Gunshine, by a friend. So he posted it on a page and said, check out these guys if anyone's into new style rock. And it was love at first sound. I couldn't believe I hadn't heard of you guys before. It was just such a great sound. It was just unbelievable. It was like a hidden gem that I'd stumbled across.
Appreciate that.
So, mate, what I wanted to do is go back and just a bit about you that sort of morphed into, then the band becoming to existence. Talk about how you sort of started. Obviously, you're a guitarist. What was the stuff you were playing to or got you into guitar, first?
Yeah. I mean, I started playing guitar when I was around like 7 or 8. And I think I remember my dad had like a Stevie Ray Vaughan concert on TV or something like that. And I just thought it was really cool. And it was kind of he was basically just like, okay, you want to get lessons? There was I was living in Gainesville, Florida. So I was actually born in Daytona Beach, Florida, but then we moved pretty early on to Gainesville up until like middle school, basically. So that's kind of where I'm from. But so he took me to like the local music store there and just basically started me, in lessons right away. And it was kind of like the typical learn out of the book, learn how to read music, that kind of thing. And kind of just all the basics and everything like that. And that kind of took me all the way up until I was probably like a teenager, but I was playing sports and I was doing other things just like any kid, they're kind of trying to do like 10 things at once to figure out like
bits of everything.
Yeah, exactly. Just to kind of figure out what it is that I wanted to really do. And then I guess it was about when I was like 17, I started playing out in bars and stuff like that and actually getting like paid to play and stuff like that. So at that point, I started taking it like a lot more serious. I kind of got lucky when it came to that. I was in the middle of like applying for a bunch of jobs at like fast food restaurants and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
And then I was doing these jam nights at one of our local bars at this point I was living in Pensacola Beach, Florida. And there were these jam nights that I would go to. And one of the other guys that was hosting the jam basically said, "Can you learn 30 songs in a week?" And I was just like, yeah, sure. I was I was like super stoked just to try to do anything that wasn't fast food jobs or whatever.
Yeah.
So I kind of got lucky with the timing that it was sort of right when I was in the middle of applying for jobs is when I sort of got the opportunity to start playing gigs out. But no, in terms of influences, it was when I very first started, I was learning like Jimi Hendrix stuff and Stevie Ray Vaughan, a lot of the bluesier, kind of things. But my dad would always basically, anytime there was a song on the radio, he would be like, this is Ozzy, this is Boston, this is Guns N' Roses, basically. I always thought it was impressive that he could kind of just name any song that was on the radio. So that's kind of how I started hearing some of those songs. I was just kind of drawn to just whatever I heard on the radio, whatever was cool, really, that resonated with me. And I mean, we listened to all kinds of stuff. Me and my sister growing up. I mean, it was like the Beach Boys and, like I said, Boston and Guns N' Roses. And but yeah, in terms of like what I started learning, it was a lot of like I said, Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan. Later, it was GNR, as I mentioned, and stuff like that. But
so it's always had a blues undertone to it. That style of music. It's always very, very bluesy in its I suppose its origins, and then you layer the rock on top.
Yeah, I kind of got into the shredding stuff a little bit later on. It was actually, I eventually hit a wall when I heard Ozzy Bark at the Moon, and I heard that guitar solo, and there was a really fast picking run at the end of that solo that I really wanted to be able to play, but I had only kind of learned like the slower blues stuff at that point, and I had a friend that could like shred, so I was like super, I was like, all right, I got to figure this out. So I just sat and worked on that picking exercise or picking lick to the Bark at the Moon solo like over and over until I could play it, and then that's kind of what got me into some of the faster playing, and then I kind of went down the rabbit hole with like Paul Gilbert and Sinister Gates from Avenged Sevenfold and Yngwie and some of these like, more shredder type guitar players. But yeah.
And then so you landed a gig as like a touring musician then after that shortly, didn't you?
Yeah, so as I was saying, my first start kind of playing out was when I was about 17, and I did that. I played cover gigs and stuff around town till I was about 22, and then I decided to move out to Los Angeles to go to Musicians Institute out there in Hollywood. And so, I did that. That was like a 1.5-year program. And at the end of the program, again, it was one of those kind of crazy timing sort of things, but the whole goal for me was really the whole reason. I mean, I wanted to learn theory, and I wanted to learn, I wanted to go to school for music and everything, but really the reason why I did it was for the networking and to hopefully land like a touring gig or to start my own band, really is what I was trying to do. So I had the idea of what would become Gunshine a long time ago. It was just a matter of needing to find all the right pieces to kind of be able to put that together.
Right. Yeah, the building blocks had to all fall in place.
Yeah, because I mean, I was always into creating and writing songs. Even when I was like in middle school, I used to write songs with one of my friends down the street, and so it was always like I knew early on that was like what excited me the most about music. So I knew I didn't want to just be a guy that improvised guitar solos all day. I mean, that's cool, to be able to learn chops and all that, but I knew I wanted to like write songs and that I could hear melodies in my head and stuff like that, and I knew that was my angle. But like I said, I was going to MI, and really my whole goal with that was to kind of put myself in a position to be able to do that a little bit easier. And what ended up happening, I mean, I auditioned several singers, tried to jam with a lot of people, couldn't really find the exact fit while I was going to school out there for what would become Gunshine. But at the end of the program, I got an audition to do to play guitar for a band called New Year's Day, and they tour with like Hailstorm, Godsmack, In This Moment, Falling in Reverse. So yeah, I got that gig right after I graduated MI, and then immediately started touring. Yeah, so my first tour was like an arena tour.
Wow. So straight into big gigs, like straight out of the gate.
Yeah, because until then, I had only really done the bar scene, the cover band stuff or whatever. So in my early 20s, to get my first touring gig was just kind of, I jumped right into the fire, playing arenas and stuff like that. It was awesome, Hailstorm, Godsmack, In This Moment, it was mostly like arena type tours and stuff like that, which was awesome for experience and everything like that. Great bunch of people and everything. And I did that all the way up through COVID. And, I was more of a hired gun in that band though. So still didn't quite get to do what it is that I wanted to do yet, but I was gaining very valuable tour experience and stuff like that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So that
Which all falls into place. It all helps, doesn't it? In terms of them honing your own thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of taught me the ropes for tour and gave me a lot of just yeah, I learned a lot of stuff and had was able to put a lot on my resume basically
Yeah.
from that time. So I mean, we went to Australia, in that band. We played Download, uh, Sydney and Melbourne, so
Oh,
that was
wow.
cool.
Yeah. It's a long way to come, isn't it?
It was, yeah, it was a
Yeah.
15-hour flight from LA, and we were only there for we weren't even there a full week. So
Oh, wow. So really that you just get in, get the couple of shows done and then get out.
yeah, but it was awesome though. Really, really enjoyed it. So
Wow.
yeah, we got to do a lot of cool stuff. Went to Europe twice with that band. Played WrestleMania. We did the entrance for Rhea Ripley's her theme at WrestleMania, which is like huge, huge event for wrestling and stuff like that. So um,
Wow.
yeah,
So
yeah, a lot
then
of really cool stuff.
you obviously I'm getting the sense that in the back of your mind you always knew what you wanted to do. You're just waiting for all the stars to align. So then the birth of Gunshine comes. So what was the key events around and how did you start bringing those musicians in together?
So obviously, when the COVID thing happened, it shocked the whole world basically, and we
Yeah.
actually had plans to go back to Australia again with New
Oh,
Year's Day.
right.
So that would have been my second time going there, but we were on tour in Europe. 2 days we flew home 2 days before the world shut down. So we
Oh,
were
geez.
over there and we started hearing about this COVID stuff going on. And there was the first big outbreak was in Milan. We were supposed to play Milan, Italy, and that was supposed to be the last show of the tour. The whole tour, there was a big COVID outbreak there. So then the show in Milan ended up getting canceled. So we had to fly home from Germany. Then 2 days after that, obviously, the whole world shut down March of 2020. Um, and so that was crazy because, like I said, we had a lot of plans,
Yeah.
to do more touring and stuff right after that. But the silver lining and everything is it allowed me to take a step back and really try to get this thing out that I was really working on behind the scenes the whole time. But it took me back to Pensacola, Florida, basically where I'm from, and um, somebody said, "Hey, you should try this singer. You should get this singer guy over to jam. He plays in this dueling piano bar, uh, on the beach or whatever. You should check him out and try to get him to sing on your demo." So at this point, like I mentioned, we tried people in LA. I tried people like all over the country, and it just really could not find the right fit that I was looking for. But after during the COVID stuff, I got our singer Jordan and Gunshine. I got him to come over, and we just had a chemistry kind of right off the bat, and wrote the song "Wall Said to Call" together basically in one day.
Wow.
Um,
That's
but
really
I,
cool.
I guess I got to back up a little bit. So I had known the drummer, the original drummer, James Renshaw. Him and I had played together for years. So I had known him for about 10 years. Him and I were staying in contact, basically trying to find a singer. But I was obviously busy touring with New Year's Day as well and that whole thing. But during off time from touring, we would kind of work on these demos. I basically demo everything on my laptop, and I have Logic and the whole home studio and that whole kind of thing. So I was working on demos for that first album kind of for years before Gunshine really, eventually got off the ground.
Right.
So whenever we met Jordan, we already had a lot to work from, basically. We already had several songs. There were several songs off that album that was already tracked instrumentally. And we even had some vocal, I write a lot of like vocal melodies and stuff like that. So there was like melodies down and stuff too. So we had a lot of material that was already ready to go. And the whole idea was, hey, let's have stuff ready to go so that when we do find a singer, we're not then starting from scratch kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. And he's the one that's got the connection with Elvis, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's like a distant cousin with Elvis, so we thought that was super cool. But yeah,
Yeah.
he could explain that better than me. But yeah, somewhere down the line there, he's like a distant cousin.
And then the other guys. So how did you get together like with the other musicians that you came across? Were they guys that you had known for a long time, or was it really just like building it all one by one?
Yeah, so the other two guys right now are kind of newer in the band, and the drummer that I mentioned that I kind of started everything with, he that I had known for like 10 years, James
Yeah.
or whatever. He recently just stepped away, kind of from touring and all that stuff, because he's having a kid and doing that whole
Yeah.
thing. So Tommy Salzberg is our new drummer, and then Jake Tripp is our bass player, and it was one of those things where it's like Jake, our bass player, he was the first one to join after Jordan. I met him through our tour manager of New Year's Day.
Your album, your debut album, this the sound of it, it just yeah, I was taken back from it because it just sounded great, and from the start to the finish, it's not one. Often you might sample a couple and you end up buying three tracks. Well, it was one that from the start to the finish, I just thought nailed it. You just had the sound, and it seemed like you knew what you wanted to do going in straight away. It sounds like it's full of intent. And was it a thing in your mind that, did you feel like you hit the nail on the head? It's exactly what you had in your mind when that came out, or was it no, it's still not right, or a works in progress?
Yeah, I mean, for that album, the vibe was really, I mean, like I kind of mentioned, I was sort of putting a lot of those songs together even while I was touring with New Year's Day, before, years prior and stuff like that. And honestly, the vibe for that album, we were coming off COVID. It was a lot of kind of dark, depressing stuff going on, and I also kind of just my sound in general, just yeah, I'm heavily influenced by Slash and Guns N' Roses and stuff like that. I wanted to do something that had the attitude of that, but sort of the melody. I'm a huge melody guy, so I was raised on, like I mentioned, like Beach Boys and Boston, and I'm a '90s kid, so even a lot of the female pop stuff like Avril Lavigne and Backstreet Boys and all that stuff,
Yeah,
we were hearing that stuff all the time, just melodies and those big catchy choruses is kind of what I was always drawn to.
yeah,
So that was kind of the vision in my head, was sort of, I want something with attitude, but that's also not like the AC/DC thing where there's only like the one vocal for the most part. I wanted like the big like Boston-y Queen, Def Leppard, multiple vocals, like that kind of thing. And even though the first album isn't as reminiscent of that, but that's sort of a big part of my influence. And that's the sound in my head and sort of the vision, especially for that record, was really just to make a feel good rock and roll record that was somewhat lighthearted. I just felt like a lot of the lyrics, a lot of not to take anything away from any other artist, but I just felt like everything at the time was very like kind of a little bit darker, depressing, whatever. I don't know. We just wanted,
yeah,
we were thinking about Van Halen and AC/DC, and hey, let's get back to feel good,
yeah. Good time rock.
good time rock and roll. Again, it was a dark time in the world. That was kind of the feeling in the air, especially on that first album.
Well, you nailed it. It captured that perfectly because you
Thank
worked
you.
with Chris Collier on that. He produced it.
He produced it. It was mostly, he mix and masters. He's like kind of done all of our stuff, but it was really, um, it's I basically self-produce a lot of stuff. Like I said, I kind of demo everything the way you hear stuff. 99%, 95% is kind of like the demo, and then Chris helps it. He helps take it to that next level sonically in terms of like we have it all demoed out, the song arranged, the melodies, the lyrics, everything. But
Right.
then in terms of the sonic, we actually go in and record the drums and then make everything sound bigger. And then he, mix and masters everything. I think for that album, we did the drums and guitars separately. We didn't even, we recorded those at this studio in Alabama called Clearwave Studio. Um, and we did, so we did drums and rhythm guitar there. And then we flew out to Vegas to meet with Chris to do vocals, track the
Oh,
vocals out there
right.
with him. And then he mixed and mastered everything. So yeah, he's I've known Chris for like 8 years or something now, and he's killer. Works with White Snake and Mick Mars and all the like George Lynch stuff. And so yeah, he actually played bass on the first record too, because that was before we brought Jake in.
Wow. And is he did he work then on the Checkmate EP as well?
Yes, yeah, he
I
mixed
see.
and mastered
Mixed
that
it.
one as well too.
Right.
So
So it's he's part of the family as such, like that's your go-to guy for bringing out
yeah,
albums.
absolutely. And for Checkmate, we did the whole thing with him. So we did we actually flew to the studio. We flew to Vegas from the get-go for we went to the studio called The Hideout in Vegas and kind of did the whole thing live on the floor with Chris for that record. So that was a lot of fun.
So now that we're on the sound thing, let's jump into the gear that you used on that album, or what you normally would use. Well, especially that album, because I suppose that's the sound that I sort of jumped in at. So what was the? I'm guessing Les Paul, without a doubt, is the guitar of choice.
Yeah. Basically, let me see. I think I have it right here actually. This is yeah, it's this one right here. This is like my 91
Oh, cool.
standard that I've beat
Well,
up pretty good.
yeah, well played.
Yeah. It's like all worn off on the back of the neck and stuff too, but yeah, that's a phenomenal guitar. So that one I used on both of the albums, and then it's my Marshall JCM 800, which I had modded. It's a 2204, the 50 watt.
Okay, yep. So what, just modded for another gain stage, I'm guessing?
Yeah, it was modded for a little bit more gain. Actually, I used that on the first album. The Checkmate EP was actually Jason Hook from Five Finger Death Punch. It was actually his JCM 800 on that album.
Oh, right.
So
Right, okay. And what with the guitar, is it you just using the Gibson pickups, or you got something else in there?
yeah, it was just the stock Gibson pickups, I believe, which is like the 498T, 490R, I believe it
Yep.
is.
Right.
And they just always sounded really, really good. The 90s was just such a good era for Gibson.
Yeah. Yep. And so you've got your Les Paul, your JCM 800. So you've got I suppose the signature Rock DNA machines there. Do you run any pedals in front?
Yeah, it's pretty standard stuff. The Boss SD1 for rhythm stuff, and then we used. I know Mick Mars gave Chris a pedal or something. We used one of his like Tube Screamer pedals for Checkmate as well. But yeah, live it's always the SD1 and the Ibanez TS9 for leads and stuff like that. It's a pretty basic classic setup for those albums, especially, just kind of bare bones.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And what about your speakers? Is there any in your quad? I'm guessing you run a quad box. You're like a vintage 30s in those, or
They were the just the T75s, just the
yeah,
standard. Yeah, no
yeah.
vintage 30s or anything.
Oh, look, I think the T75s are great. That's what I've got, and they tend to have a bit of a love hate. Some people hate them, some people love them, but I just think they're one of the most neutral sounding. You can really adjust your amp with those speakers quite well.
Yeah, and I'm kind of the guy, I don't really swap things out and experiment with like all the different combinations too much. I kind of, if I like a sound, I kind of just roll with it.
Yeah,
So that's kind of how I am, and I try to focus more on like the song and the dynamics that I can also incorporate with my playing too. That I think some people forget about because a lot of people are really wrapped up in all the like take Eddie Van Halen for example. Like he had such a cool tone, and people always try to replicate that tone, but so much of it was in his playing, and so
yeah,
much was in how he articulated stuff. So
100%. That's the hardest part, isn't it? Is playing the way they played, because you can hear guys pick up anything and it sounds like them.
right, right.
That's just it is amazing how much comes down to those little fine nuances in the fingers that can shape someone's sound.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So, and we've done different combinations of things like for the leads. Sometimes we do different things for leads than we do rhythm. So, like for lead, I think we use the 800 into like one of those torpedo two notes where
Oh, yeah, yeah. The Captor
for the
X.
cab. Yeah, the
Yep.
cab sim stuff or whatever, you know. So we've done that too. I think we did that for all the leads on Checkmate, but the rhythms were through the cab.
Is your most, I suppose, most comfortable or happiest place, is it on the stage or is it in the studio?
That's a hard one because I like them both for different reasons. I'm definitely, I think my favorite part about music is creating things. You know, I love writing songs. I love the feeling when I hear a cool melody in my head and I know that it's going to be something really cool. Um, like that's a really cool feeling when you can just picture something. It almost takes you to like a different place, you know. So that's
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite parts about the whole thing. But um, you know, I grew up playing sports and stuff too, and I love the adrenaline that I get from playing live. So there's that part of me that loves, you know, that element as well. So it's kind of like them both for different reasons.
Yeah, yeah, well, that's fair enough. And at the moment, I mean, what's the, everyone knows, even if you're here in Australia, everyone knows about the 80s LA rock scene was just, such a legendary thing. What is the touring scene like in America at the moment? Is it still that there's plenty of cities to play, plenty of bars or, arenas? Can you still get around a lot? Obviously, no one sort of thinks it's going to be like 1988 or 87 again, but is it still
Yeah.
all happening?
Well, it's funny. We're actually playing one of those places on the Sunset Strip. We're playing the Whiskey
Oh,
uh,
wow.
in August, which is going to be really cool because that's one of those legendary places that Motley Crue and all those bands, you know, got their start. Um, but you know, touring is kind of it's in a hard phase right now for bands that are when you're starting a band from scratch is extremely difficult. You know, just to get there's just a lot of work that goes into building a fan base on social media and
Yeah.
just um, you know the new model with streaming and everything like that. It's if you were already successful before all that stuff happened, I think it was almost like you were sort of grandfathered in whenever streaming came out. But
Right.
now, if you're starting a band in today's day and age, it can be cool, but it's also difficult. You know, so but the touring is kind of part of that in terms of you know everything post COVID has really just the prices for everything have gone up just crazy. Like prices for transportation, prices for gas,
Combination.
and just everything else. You know, so it's you have to kind of be smart about it. And I think our strategy right now is to just keep growing the band as much as we can, releasing a lot of new music, and getting the budget to where we can hopefully tour a little bit easier as well too. But we're actually going out this summer for about a month long tour. So and that's one of our first like headline kind of things. So that should be interesting.
Oh, because you've done some good support acts. Like you've got what Buckcherry, I think you guys toured with.
Yeah, we did Buck Cherry and Steel Panther and Jackal, Tom Kiefer, Stephen Piercy from Rat. We played shows with him too. So
Oh, yeah. So that's an impressive list. Yeah, it's a lot of, and especially the people there are going to really jump on your sound too.
yeah, so you know that was awesome. So I'm excited. I am excited this summer to kind of see where we're at, kind of doing our own thing as well, because we've always that was kind of the vision from the start is to kind of brand it as a headliner. So it'll be fun to see kind of see the turnout and you know meet everybody and jam and stuff this summer. I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah, no, that sounds really, and hopefully one day you might end up out here.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, you know, honestly, I think our top stream city is like Stockholm, Sweden, or something like that. But then second place is I think Melbourne, Australia, and then
Wow.
I think Sydney's like right there behind it or something.
Yeah, that's good to
Yeah,
know. Obviously, if you keep pushing and growing, then there's every chance you could be coming out.
you know, like I said last time, I was like 2019 is when I was there last. So I'd love to make it back. It was an awesome time.
Yeah, no, that would be really good. It'd be really good. Is the first album, was it well received in terms of that, you put it out and you got what you wanted back out of it? Did you feel that success is, because when I listen to it, to me, it sounds like an album of really experienced musicians. It's very well put together. It's well written. The lyrics, the music, everything about it felt really well built, and it felt like something that should have gone out and been instantly loved and appreciated. Is that the feeling that you got from it?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting you bring that up because you can just know in your heart and feel very confident that you're kind of you have this vision in your head and you can feel confident that you're onto something or that you kind of know the direction you want to go or whatever. But then the second part of that is the marketing and then the all the work you have to put in, kind of as I mentioned before, the new model. And honestly, we're still working on it. It's one of those things where so many people are just now hearing the first album, and to us, we might think it's a couple years old now or whatever, but there's so many people that it's brand new to. And so we're just really, we're still trying to do the heavy lifting to really just get people to hear it.
Yeah.
So I don't think, that's the hardest part is like, we've received very well, basically for the amount of people that have heard it, we've
Yeah.
received very well or very a very good response. But that's the challenge is just continuing to get more and more people to hear it.
More momentum, yeah. And it's funny, like I can only assume it's the same over there. You don't have FM radio on your side anymore, where bands used to be able to rely on radio. Where now, especially in Australia, your rock stations are pretty much legacy stations. They're playing the same old stuff. You've
Yep.
got your indie artist stations that are playing. It's very hard unless you fit into a very narrow criteria. An indie station won't pick it up, and the rock station's playing old stuff. And so here you go, creating all this great new music with nowhere to call home for promotion.
Yeah, that's the hardest part of the whole game is is just trying to it's an uphill battle starting a band from scratch in today's world, but there's benefits to it as well, because you have social media, maybe there's the positive is that yeah, you can get it out to a lot of people kind of instantaneously,
Yeah.
but it's not as simple as just doing that and then everything blows up. You gotta have the consistency of just doing that all the time so you just get it to more and more people and yeah.
Yeah. Is the thing for like obviously doing your own headline tours and your own shows is where you want to be, but from that perspective of doing support acts, is that a recipe for growth, or did you just look at it like it's a necessary evil? You have to do it. Do you see that kick up in sales after you've done a show with Back Cherry?
Definitely. The merch numbers are great. Yeah, and especially if you tour with bands that are kind of where you think those fans might like your band too.
Yep.
You're definitely going to get the people that cross their arms and stare at you for a few songs, and then, but then just when you think that they don't care, then they come swarm the merch table after the show. So it's one of those
Wow,
things.
that's really good.
Yeah, it's like they're all just trying to figure it out when they haven't heard you yet. But then, if you do a good job, I think, yeah, it's gone well for us. We're in terms of like response at the merch table and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that can be a trap too. Some bands only do support tours and they kind of fall into that trap too. So I think it's important to have a vision. Like for us, we want to be headliners, but as long as you stay true to that vision and build it in a way that it'll get treated that way, but also humbling yourself and doing support tours in the beginning is important for sure.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Is there anyone that you'd love to do a tour with that you're hanging out that, you're hoping you're going to get the call?
Yeah, I mean, the first one that comes to mind would be Def Leppard. Joe Elliott has played us a couple times on his radio show called Planet Rock. It's actually a really
That's
crazy
great.
story. There was a fan messaged us and said, "Hey, can you get me a CD as soon as you can? I'm going to hand it to Joe Elliott at the meet and greet." And so, we're kind of thinking like, okay, I didn't really think a whole lot about it, but sure enough, she handed him the CD at the meet and greet because I got sent a link and somebody said, "Hey, Joe Elliott played your band on his radio show." And when I heard his commentary, he was like, "Yeah, I actually got handed this band CD at backstage at one of our shows recently." I'm just thinking like, I can't believe that she actually gave it to him and he actually listened to it. So
Well, that's great. Well, that's a great compliment to get that sort of rock royalty making a mention and playing your stuff, and that is a huge compliment in itself.
Yeah, and he was very, very complimentary of the music and the band. So that was definitely kind of a crazy moment for sure.
So if you've got the new listener, so someone comes along and says to you, oh, you know, they've just discovered you or they've heard about you. What's the song you're telling them? Is there a signature song that you're like, oh, look, if you're going to hear one, go and hear this?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one too, because it's like I want people to sit down and listen to Till the End of Days for 8.5 minutes. You know what I mean? So it's like they can hear some of the other elements that are in Gunshine. We get some people on our social media that'll hear a 15-second clip and think all of our songs are going to sound like that. But I think that's what makes Gunshine unique, is that there are these different elements in there that are, we call them the curveballs. We throw in these curveballs that make it a little bit left of center, a little bit different. But if I only had one song, or a couple songs, yeah, the easy ones are Feel Alright, Swing Away, those are probably the easiest ones if you just had to show someone a song real quick. But like I said, we have the other ones like Meet You There and Till the End of Days that are definitely have some other things going on that I think add to the whole variety of it as well.
Of what you can do and what it's about. Yeah, 100%. I get what you mean.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, look, I wish you guys the best, and if there's anything that I can ever do to help you guys in any way, always feel free to reach out, because it's you're making great music, and you're a gem amongst a pack of many. There's not many that do it as well as you guys do.
Oh, I really appreciate that. And we're actually heavy into working on the third one right now. So
wow, that's great. So there's something in the mix coming out already.
Yes, yep. We're going out to Vegas in September to meet with Chris again, and we've been demoing stuff out, and yeah, it's sounding killer. Definitely some different things going on, so it'll be interesting. Yeah.
If you're out there in September, is it by the end of the year you reckon it'll be out?
It'll probably be more like early next year. Yeah, it'll probably be like by the time we get everything else ready, it'll probably be sometime between January and March, I think, somewhere in there.
Oh, that's something to look forward to. That's definitely great.
But we'll probably put some songs out maybe between that time frame in January. So
yeah. Look, thanks, Austin. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on and telling your story.
Absolutely. And thanks again for having me. Always very much appreciated.
Thank you very much for checking out the show. If you did like it and have the opportunity, please do leave a 5-star review on your podcast player. It does help others find the show. If you want to find out more information about this episode, the guest, or even the other episodes that are on offer, head over to bumpingintothatsound.com.au. Find the episode page, and I always do my best to list follow-up links and details that make it easy for you to find out more. Thanks again for stopping by, and I'm looking forward to bumping into you next time.